Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss will take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. You set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me.
Well, hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Don McKeag Show, post-Thanksgiving. This is a show where we educate, mediate, coagulate, infuriate, infiltrate, but we never, ever imitate. I have a radio show on Cape Cod on Saturdays from 11 to 1 on WXTK that you might wish to turn in on from 11 to 1. A lot of Plymouth listeners and other towns also listen. If you like what you hear, please tell your friends, because that is my purpose. My purpose is not self-glorification. I'm here, I don't get paid, and that's not important anyway. What's important is I'm wearing a tie now with the flag on it because I believe in America first. We've just had a Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, giving thanks. How much of that was practiced in our news media? Oh, they give the token articles. They show the pilgrim hats on people. They, of course, show Plymouth, America's hometown. But what else do? They diminish and demean this wonderful country we have. We're flawed, no question, but we are people. But how much patience and tolerance are you people going to have with the way things are going? I worry about my children and yours, my grandchildren and yours, not about myself and our age group. I'm thankful that we grew up in the 50s and 60s when there was a semblance of order and when America first ran the roost. We now have this liberal claptrap. We have it in colleges, we have it on the air, we have it on the sidewalks. It's not about tolerance anymore. It's about anti-American values that we used to have. On that radio show, why I mention it is I always read the year 1526, the speaker, Martin Luther. Not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther. A practicing, devout Catholic priest who saw the corruption, saw the deterioration of the church from the top, saw how the people were suffering so that authorities in the church could live lives like kings and in decadence. And he did something about it. And his statement, by the way, jeopardized his life. His statement is what I read on the radio and on this show every time because we must hear it. All of us. We are all partially or totally guilty of this. Conscience asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? Excuse me, I started. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? Where's the conscience today? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he must take it because his conscience tells him it is right. We have no conscience of America now in the key leadership positions, federal, state, and towns sometimes, although towns are the best representative of what it once was. We have people now who are on an ego trip, who are too well paid, too well insured, and too well endowed with retirement benefits, and too powerful. Remember, 565 people in America dictate the rules to 320 plus million people. And look at what a mess Congress is. Both parties. But I take on the liberal Democratic Party, which should be called socialist, because they will do what every socialist nation has done. They will put us down. Eventually, this country will go down. We're on the way down now. Every indicator is there. Now, I don't know if any of you caught the Bill O'Reilly show the other night. I don't watch it a lot. He gets a little arrogant from me, but at least he takes on really what I see is wrong in the country too often. He has a little bit, it's called Waters World or something, Watters, and a guy named Waters goes around to different locations and does these shows. And for Thanksgiving, he had come to Plymouth, Massachusetts, right down the street, right in front of the Plymouth Rock Memorial. And he interviewed people of all ages. It was disgraceful. I was a former teacher, taught English, coached football and baseball, loved every bit of it, worked hard at teaching. Worked hard on academics. They were a priority to me. Character, building character, holding kids accountable for their homework, punishing them if they didn't do it. Now it's all about feelings. Well, you should have seen the answers. America spends probably at least 9 to 10 times more to educate each one of our kids than the rest of the world, and we are listed as, depending upon what poll, and this has been for years, everywhere between 15th and 18th in the world. Korea, China, a lot of India, they beat us big time. What's the answer from the NEA and the teachers' unions? Well, that's because we have to take all their kids. No, it isn't. I'm a teacher. I was there 14 years. The answer is the children are not being challenged, and they are not being held accountable for their performance. The liberals now, they don't want to give an F because that hurts the kids' feelings. Some kids get an M for, well, maybe, or some foolishness. But they won't hold themselves accountable. They've watered down the tests, watered down the values. Well, here we are. I'm wearing this tie because I don't pay lip service to patriotism. Too many of you and others out there do. Oh, they put the flag out on Veterans Day, 4th of July, all those other things. My radio show, we play the Marine hymn when it was their 239th birthday. But I don't pay lip service. I mean everything I say, and a lot of others do. We have a president now that's cut back the military, and he has a press that supports it, and he has the liberal establishment that supports it when the world is in total turmoil. We have cutbacks in salaries to military personnel. These are people who give their lives to their country, and yet their pensions are being cut, their salaries being cut, and of course, these cutting back on personnel, which, by the way, will never be mentioned in the media as to why the defense attorney, head of the Defense Department just resigned. The personnel isn't there. Yet this president and liberal Democrats and the press find no problem bringing illegal people in here. They get free health care, they get a place to live, and they get a check if they haven't got a job, which, of course, there are no jobs. And that's okay. Patience and tolerance. Is that okay with you? Now, I tell you, I know I'm preaching to the choir, those that are going to still watch. But as I say on the radio, I do this show so that you can have some ammunition from someone who knows the truth, who has lived it. I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. I owned 6 businesses. I've been a property owner, a taxpayer in 3 different states. This isn't bragging. I know what taxes mean. I know what payroll costs are. I know why businesses are failing and why small businesses especially are failing. It's liberalism. Plain and simple. And unfortunately, women comprise a high percentage of liberals. It's the so-called feel-good party, or feel-good philosophy. Now, liberals have done good things. I'm not at all. There have been overly exuberant conservatives over the years. I think FDR, if you watch those wonderful documentaries that were on just recently, Ken Burns, what a genius. You saw the Roosevelts. Teddy, the cousin, the older cousin, Franklin, and of course, Eleanor. I had the pleasure of meeting Eleanor up in Amherst when I was a sophomore, a freshman in college, just before she died. And I know that Franklin Delano Roosevelt's liberal policies made some sense. I was a John F. Kennedy Democrat. Liberal on the social side of things, but extremely conservative on the fiscal side of things, which is what the founding fathers set this country up on, holding people accountable for the taxpayer dollars that they were entrusted with. Now they dictate their own salaries. Now public unions dictate the rules of the road. They don't care if the money's there or not. They don't care if you and I continue to be taxed out of business, taxed out of our homes, and you still vote Democrat in Massachusetts. As I say, I was a John F. Kennedy Democrat. I was a Democrat for most of my life, although I voted for the best person. I was a Reagan Democrat. Let's revisit Reagan, by the way. He was criticized for tax cuts and all this, giving money to the business community. Of course, the money was then translated into job creation. Look up John F. Kennedy's speeches. I forget where it was, somewhere in Washington, where he gave tax credits to business, believed that the way to re-get an economy going and to strengthen the economy was to encourage business to hire more people through tax breaks. Did you ever ask your Democrat representative in the state of Massachusetts how they feel about that? How do you feel in today's paper or yesterday's paper. Pay raises for the governor and others in Massachusetts. We're broke, you know. Do you understand this state, along with most states in this country, are broke? Period. They're playing the shell game. They rob Peter to pay Paul. They get into... That's what the problem with is in Social Security. But you don't get the truth from the media because they're in the tank for Democrats and for liberals. Period. They're in the tank. Never forget it. That's why they hate Fox so much. They vilify Fox because they attempt to educate you on the facts. When did facts not matter anymore? We have underfunded, non-funded pension plans in this state. If we had a large percent, I forget, I read it quite a while ago, if we had 40% or something like that, near 50, just under 50, if we had those people retire now, the state could not pay them their pensions, and they may have worked for 30 or 40 years. It's a shell game. It's phony. Yet, knowing that, this state, ruled by Democrats, corrupted by Democrats, insidious Democrats, which I once was, deems to have their panel. Again, who appoints them? Does a businessman, do any of us out here in the public get a chance to be on one of these boards or appoint them? No, they're appointed by the politicians who then, of course, get what they want, and that is a smile when it comes to getting raises. That's what Billy Bulger did. A thief, an out-and-out thief. Get something like $239,000 in retirement, and if you averaged everything he made, including his $400,000 or $500,000 salary at my alma mater, University of Massachusetts, it comes to like 107 with his 40 years of public service, you Democrats. But he appointed so many people to so many boards that they go right along with what he wants. But it isn't just the raises, those of you government workers that somehow might be listening. They have no shame. Let's get back to Martin Luther. Because sometimes, sooner or later, you have to do something because of your conscience. Not because of your vanity, not because of popularity, not because of anything else, because you know it's right. Or, in this case, you know it's wrong. To show you how arrogant, how unthinking, and how corrupt these are. I don't care how nice they are. I've met them all. A lot of them. A lot of them terrific people. That's why they're politicians. They are going to get 71%, not 5, not 10. It was bad enough that either the fire department or the police department, in this economy, do you understand the taxes on businesses in Boston are so exorbitant? Restaurants go out of business. Hotels struggle. Other businesses struggle. People losing their homes, losing their apartments. It's been reported, you know this. Foreclosures. All nice people. And yet these arrogant so-called leaders, they don't get a 10, 20, 30% increase. 71%. An advisory board Monday recommended increasing the Massachusetts governor's total pay by nearly $100,000 a year. Has this governor, by the way, have we seen great things from this governor? Need I list them, you Democrats? You're insane. You're irrational. I got to calm down. I've said this on the radio. I will continue to say it on the television. It's no longer Democrats, Republicans, and independents. It's no longer black, white. It's no longer Catholic, Jewish, Muslim. It's down to the very basics. It's rational thinkers versus irrational. And we have irrational thinkers with an Ivy League doctorates representing us. And they're still irrational. To them, 2 and 2 is sometimes 5, and maybe it can be 3. They cannot and will not do the right thing. Simple as that. Oh, they'll hand out money, your money, my money, but they will not do what's right. Conservatives say no once in a while. In fact, they say no a lot. Let's transfer that to the kids growing up today. Liberal parents versus conservative parents. Whose kids do you suppose are the more successful? You won't read it in the papers. You won't hear Chris Matthews talk about it, or Colbert, or any of them. You might see it in the Wall Street Journal. But who reads the Wall Street Journal? That's too mucky-muck. Plus, they tell the truth. They're the most widely read newspaper in the United States. Why pay attention to what they say? Conservative parents, kids, overwhelmingly turn out better than liberals. Now, again, there's extremes. I'm not sticking up for extremes in either. But I am talking those parents like mine, like most of yours, are those who've been around in as long as I have, which is a long time. I remember my mother, little 5 feet, she'd say, I don't care what the other kids are doing. As long as you live in this house, this is what you're going to do. And I did it. Oh, of course, I tried to sneak out or something like that and got punished for it. Now they give them a timeout and buy them a car. And they wonder why, I'd love to have a poll. Kenny, I should do this, That should be my next job. I should go out and do some interviews of people. The kids, not the parents. See how well they turned out. Being given this handout where they run the family. See, that's what we've got now thanks to liberals. We have the masses running the decision-making now. Illegals, no less. Illegals now are dictating to this president. That's not how they interpret it, but it is. We're going to do what we want to do, and he says, fine, come on in. 7 million or 5 million? He's insane. This man is insane. And the only reason there isn't a huge outroar is because he's black. And that makes it even worse because it's offensive to the millions of wonderful black people who play by the rules and expect a black person to play by the rules too. I'm sick. How long are you going to take this racial crap? Black and white. Are we looking at Bill Cosby's problems and it looks bad? And criticize him? See, that's a black? No, I doubt it very, very much. He's a man, and he has done wrong, it looks to me. But I'm not criticizing him because he's black. I never do that. Never have. But it's a two-way street. Not in America anymore, though. This Ferguson mess is a creation by the media. It is out of control. It is supported by people like Al Sharpton, the president, and others because it focuses on the black situation. It is not right. This big, young man, no one said what the autopsy said, whether he was on drugs. Since when does going into a convenience store, manhandling, this is all on tape, by the way, you'd never see it. Now, if this was a white guy doing it to a black attendant, you'd see it. Anything to stir up the pot. These rotten media. I hate them. And I don't hate. But I hate anybody that's doing to our kids and our value system what the media today is doing, and you should be too. This kid was on tape mauling and manhandling the convenience store cashier or whatever, stealing a box of cigars. Now, is that good behavior? I guess we forget all about that. And the reason I mention this is this was his state of mind, period. He goes, smashes the window of a cruiser. What are the police departments supposed to do? How do you policemen still vote Democrats when you know how they stand? I understand lawyers. That's why the ABA and all the bars, so, they go heavily Democrat. You know why? Because liberals always produce more lawsuits. They pass more laws. And, of course, they don't want to enforce them. And the legal system is so corrupt deep down that there's any way they can use to get a criminal off, they do. It was on last night, somebody down in Delaware, I think, illegally gave $12,000 to people running in the Republican Party, Republican candidates. He was caught, went in front of a judge, found guilty. No question it was wrong. I guess he broke the law. But what good is that? If you got illegals coming in here and it doesn't matter to them. See, it's only convenient when it's the conservative side or a Republican side. This guy's doing 8 months in a halfway house. Charlie Wrangler, a congressman for 35 or plus years. Al Sharpton, another phony. Tim, whatever his name was, that was the Department of Treasury head of the Treasury Department, appointed by Obama, came out, he hadn't paid his taxes. He didn't pay taxes. Not only were they not punished, he got the job. Al Sharpton, he's got a TV show. How much are we going to take? How much patience and tolerance? When are we going to start thinking about young black students? How are they responding to this drivel? No one wants a young person killed. It happens all the time, though. Rush Limbaugh was talking about percentages. Nobody wants percentages. Talked about the huge percentage of black abortions. The huge percentage of blacks killing other blacks. I find that sad. I love people that are people. I have so many great black friends. I played ball, I coached. Most of us haven't got any racist tendencies today until they're brought out. I now will respond. I am sick of being a doormat to liberals. When are you going to be? Oh, and by the way, this double standard that I always talk about. Some Republican, notice it's in all of the papers. I didn't look it up. I should have. I don't know, Kenny, maybe you saw this. Some Republican made a disparaging remark about the Obama girls. I guess they were wearing real short skirts or something. And this fool, texts or does something, and it's picked up, of course, by the media, and all hell breaks loose. Leave the children alone. Leave the White House children alone. Which, by the way, I agree with. No place for that. Not the kids' fault. But how convenient. Anyone remember the Bush twins? George and Laura Bush's two daughters were in college. and evidently had been partying. Of course, they're not supposed to party, right? It's okay if you Bill Clinton to party or anybody else, but a Democrat. Do you remember what the press did to those two girls? Now you'll say, well, they were in college. No. Those are the daughters of the president. Why are they vilified and treated any differently than any other president's daughters or any other president's children? Because there's a double standard, and because the liberal left are vicious. I've taken the gloves off, and I'm fed up, and I am going to spend this time, and every time I'm on the radio or television, trying to get you to use your conscience and start standing up for something. Remember that old line? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. That's what we've got now. We've got people who don't stand for it. You know why? Because life's too good. They got too much money. Kids are in private schools. They're making a fortune. Oh, well. Wait till things go down. And it's just a matter of time. Again, pay raises. How many of you are going to call? I'm calling. I'm going to get numbers. I wish I had them. I'm going to call up to that State House. I'm going to call the people I know in government and say, I expect you to turn that raise. Charlie Baker says he's against it. I hope to God he sticks to it. It would be a great start for an incoming governor. Do you know what these politicians also get? I ran for state representative. See, here again, I know what it's like. I ran down in Dukes County. Imagine a conservative Republican campaigning in Martha's Vineyard with all those liberal phonies, actors and actresses and multimillionaires pretending to be somebody else. Didn't ever think of that? They raised hell about how much money George Bush made. He's running for president. Of course, they didn't care about the Kennedys' money. They didn't care about anybody else's money. Huge millionaires. But by God, they cared in this election, last election, because George Bush had too much money. But they don't care that some of these bird brains, who, by the way, think about being an actor or an actress. I don't suggest they don't have talent. Obviously, they do. But unlike an athlete, a professional athlete, unlike a professional musician, they get 2, 3, 5, 10, 12 chances. Cut. They'll do a scene. Cut if they get it wrong. They forget their lines. Cut. Take another one. Go. And they're rewarded by millions and millions of dollars, and no one cares. We got a Red Sox now signed for, I don't know, 120 or 30 million for 6 years. Hasn't done a thing yet. Perfectly okay. You people would pay $500 for a ticket to the Patriots or the Red Sox. But don't let the dentist charge you too much. Don't let the doctor, don't let your health care go up. But by God, go to a rock concert or go to, it's just insanity. But this is, again, why I talk about Martin Luther. By the way, I guarantee after those interviews, Plymouth, I've said this before, and this is a disgrace to Plymouth as well, to Carver, where I live, where I had a restaurant. And by the way, I did a poll one day, one Thanksgiving, when I had the Cranebrook restaurant of my employees. And the kids, young people are sitting at the bar. First, I asked them who John Carver was, for whom the town is named, for whom the school, there's a hotel in the Plymouth Center. Oh, he was something, I don't know, he was something with the Pilgrims. They didn't know he was the first governor. He was the Mayflower chap. He was a big key leader. They didn't know who Miles Standish was. They couldn't tell you really anything about George Washington. They didn't even know he was the first president. But they knew who Martin Luther King was, and they knew who Rosa Parks was, as they should. You know, a country deteriorates from the inside, and it's little things that build up into big things. There's a saying, and I don't know it exactly, but it goes like this, you know. Take care of the little things, and the big things take care of themselves. Well, we've had this absolute letdown of moral standards that's now catching up with us. People vilify religion. You know, it started, I believe, with the misinterpretation of Thomas Jefferson's separation of church and state. They conveniently neglect to say that it was talking about there shall be no dictating of a religion. Did not say you could not have religion. It's never been said. Contrarily, every speech given by those founding fathers called for God's guidance. In God we trust on the monetary paper things. That started, it wasn't until 1960. And we got people that want to do away with that because it's offensive to those atheists out there. In other words, the minority should dictate. This is liberalism. The minority. If one person is offended, we got to change everything. And they do. Schools. Schools are the worst. They do everything. They bend over backwards to represent the minority. That's how our kids get this crapola. To not be able to have Christmas decorations on town property or in the schools when we're 76% Christian, when we allow Hanukkah, we allow, it's okay though, by the way, to bring in and have a Muslim ceremony in different schools. It's outrageous. But it's tolerated because this country's in the hands and in the grip of liberal Democrats. Make no bones about it. And if you think like I do or anywhere near what I do, you better stop voting for. I don't care. I'm not a Republican either. I've lost my respect for most politicians. But you can't vote for the status quo. I don't care if it's Alfred E. Newman. People probably don't know who that is, Kenny, right? On Mad Magazine, remember that with the freckles? I don't care if I'd vote for him rather than a Democrat today. Pay raises. The Special Advisory Commission on Public Compensation said the governor's salary should rise from $151,800 to $185,000 with a new yearly $65,000 housing allowance. Here's another one, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. When I ran for state rep, salary was quite low. Well, it was $2,000. I mean, the year 2000 when I ran. I didn't win, of course. A conservative Republican in Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and liberal Falmouth, Woods Hole, you kidding me? All those tofu-eating, bottled water bike riders. You think they like Don McKeag telling it like it is? Oh, heaven forbid. Grief. Anyway, do you know all these politicians get there? You wonder why they're not afraid to put gas taxes on, because they get their gas for nothing. They get transportation allowances. Now, how many people making $100,000, which still, to me, is a lot of money, should be able to live pretty nice on $100,000, unless you want all three kids to have their own computers, their own iPods, their own cars, their own televisions, which is what, of course, drives up the cost of living, but no one talks about that. Why should anybody making now, I think the town state reps now get 65 grand or thereabouts, and they still get their gas. It's just like Harvard, BU, the Catholic Church, Episcopal Church, all these big property owners in the city of Boston pay a pittance on taxes. Some, for years, paid no taxes. But liberal Democrats tell us the wealthy are the bad ones. Their ability to pay, they should be punished for all the money they have. It's okay for the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches and all these people with huge revenues. They, of course, now they won't change the fact that John Harvard was given that along with other educators because they were broke and they were offering education to the young. And in their wisdom, the Yankee farmers who knew the value of $1 said, we're not going to charge churches and schools, other public buildings. We're not going to charge taxes on that, colleges. But we all are supposed to make adjustments to changes in the economy, but not the Ivy League. Harvard has, I keep quoting this, they went through a dip during the stock market low, down to $36 billion. They now have $52 billion in annuities. Imagine, $52 billion in their treasury. Gifts. And they don't pay a full tax rate. But when a hotel owner complains or raises the rooms charge, or when an apartment owner raises the rent, now they get rent control to stop it. It is really sad. But what's really sad is this will go away. This will go away. Report recommended a salary of $165,000 for the lieutenant governor. They don't talk about free health care. They got a $12,000, the best health care program you can get, and they get transportation. And now housing. I started to say, how many people with a $100,000 salary even think of getting a housing allowance? A housing allowance. Now some say, well, that's to help them because they got to pay, if they live in the governor's mansion, they've still got a home that they're paying taxes on. Yeah. Was that a choice to run for governor? Yeah. Why should the taxpayers be paying their mortgage in Wellesley or wherever the hell their house is? Oh, no, don't ask that kind of question, McKeag. That's mean-spirited. This will go away, but Ferguson will still stay. I heard on the television the other night, I don't know which show, they've now identified the protesters in Ferguson, especially now, and other places. They come from all over the country. They're not Ferguson, residents. This kid is dead because of his behavior. Simple as that. The cop was in his car, for heaven's sake. It's just sad. I find it really sad. And it comes about because one political party has nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. Unions, public unions are the only unions growing today in this country. Why? Because the other unions, the automobile unions, steel unions, they have to conform to the fact there isn't any money for the raises. Government workers just raise taxes on you and me, and you pay it. And I'm talking to you policemen, and you, I'll tell you, if you policemen, when I was running and when I was on the radio and has been, police were the only real government worker who had knowledge of conservative values. I'm not saying they didn't, they have a strong pro-Democrat union. But individually, I knew a lot of cops, and I still do. A lot of state troopers used to listen to me all the time. And I'd hear from them. Because they know who the law and order group is. And it isn't the liberals. Imagine being asked to get up and drive on highways, go into some of these hell pits in these inner cities, drugged out people, and you're carrying a gun, and you got to consider what you have to do if your life is in jeopardy. You're the one that has to worry. Liberals, press, racists, black racists. By the way, getting back to government, excuse me. Kenny, want to play some music? How we doing for time, by the way? I didn't even look at our starting time. I'm rambling on here, and I'm going to continue.
You have 15 more minutes, Donnie. Can I add something?
Of course you can add something. This is Kenny Bukes. He's
the producer.
Very valued, a producer and a valued member of the Plymouth community.
I make Donnie look
along
good.
with Miss Karen, his
Yes,
wife,
my
lovely wife, and they do the Talk of the Town show on Wednesdays at what time? Oh, God.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock on
Live.
Wednesday. And I'm sure most of you have seen it. It's a great show.
Donnie, what I wanted to add.
What did you want to ask Kenny Bukes?
You're talking about the 60-odd people that were arrested in Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of those 60 was a resident of Ferguson. The rest were bussed in.
Correct. And paid. Paid.
I don't know who paid them, but somebody had to pay them to be there.
We have a press, by the way, Kenny. Did you hear that, folks? Out of 60 protesters, 59 of them weren't even from Ferguson, which, by the way, will be justified by the liberal media and by the liberals and by the blacks, as these are people so concerned they've given up their day. I wonder if they ever had the nerve to ask how many of them had a job, Kenny.
It would have been a good question.
Yeah, it would have been very unfair, though, right, in the liberal world.
It would have. And the other point I wanted to add was you were talking earlier about the aide who took a shot at the Obama kids.
Yes.
And they showed the picture of the disinterested look. I agree. They're teenagers. What are you going to do about it? But anyways, she was identified as a GOP aide, number one. She was forced to resign.
Yep.
And after she had resigned, the press took to smearing her because as a teenager, she was arrested for a misdemeanor.
She was only a teenager herself?
When she was arrested, and it was a misdemeanor. But they have smeared her. Where does she go to get a reputation back? That's what I want to know.
Well, she can't, that's all.
She's done.
Yeah. Well, remember what they did to Monica Lewinsky? They vilified her. Now, if that had been a Republican president, she would have been Joan of Arc. It would have been the president being really, evil. And you know it. Anyone with a brain knows it, but it's okay in the minds of today's the women. This is why I take on women so much. When I ran for state rep in the year 2000, they had a fundraiser for me at Farm Neck Golf Course. Ernie Bach Sr. put the fundraiser on. Bill Clinton was there playing golf with Mr. Jordan. There was a line of women waiting to meet him, shake his hands. This was not long after that whole big mess came up with, I never had sex with that woman. Of course, that was, changed, but it was okay with women. It was okay with women. And you and I both know if that was a Republican president, their women would have been picketing. He'd have been forced to resign.
I would have been put out to the street.
Of course you would have. Yet they're out there. This double standard for liberal Democrats is a disgrace. A disgrace. But it doesn't matter. This is this country today. And they talk about we're the dissidents. We're the evil ones when we call attention to it. Who was that senator that lip-locked with some aide? He was half in the bag, and he kisses this female staff member, and he's a Republican in the elevator, remember? The senator, he had to resign.
Yes, he did.
But a Democrat just goes on. And just like this girl, Bill Maher, that fool, what he said about Sarah Palin's daughter, basically called her a whore. Did they make him resign his position and his show? Of course not.
I won't even watch his
program.
program.
He made a diddly dink apology, and everything was fine.
Yeah, he has no credibility with me.
Don Imus makes a comment about basketball, women basketball players and black women basketball players. It could be interpreted as offensive. Fine. They shut him down. But if it's the other way around, perfectly okay. Black football players have been quoted calling owners as nothing but slave owners, slave dealers. Perfectly okay. Perfectly okay. Sterling there that owns a basketball team, he has to sell the team because he makes it. Granted, these comments are offensive, fine. But when did we start taking the next step? I thought we still had some semblance of free speech. But free speech today, Kenny, only applies to the liberal Democrat side. Simple as that. And if you dispute it, you are part of the problem. Because if you can't see the contradictions over and over in this country, daily. This Ferguson thing, if that was a black cop that shot a white kid, there'd be nothing. It'd be gone. And I'm sorry. I'm not taking on blacks per se. I'm taking on an absolutely unacceptable value system where the Democrats today have no standards other than a double standard. They will do anything, and they've proven it. Proven it. Nixon has to resign for a break-in at the Democratic Convention in an attempt to get a list. I mean, to show you how crazy he was, Nixon, here he was. He couldn't run again anyway. It was a second term. He's got these nitwits going in trying to find a list of prostitutes that was circulating to service members of the Democrat convention. That's what it's all about. You never even read much about that. President's forced to resign because the tapes showed him as being part of it.
Too much single malt.
Yeah. Another president, a Democrat, can do anything. And you women called it his personal life. Do you understand? You don't, obviously. Neither does the country. And especially the media when they pick a favorite. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be unbiased. That's why you have freedom of the press. Not freedom for the press to take one side all the time. By the way, let's look back. Do you remember this, Kenny? I thought of this the other night. The Rodney King fiasco in California.
Oh, yes.
Where he gets all beaten and the cops had to resign and all that stuff, okay? Now, of course, they conveniently eliminated a big part of the tape, just like this time when they didn't show the tape that's available at the convenience store showing the brown boy punching or manhandling this worker at the convenience store. Right. Since when is that okay, folks, liberals? When is that okay? For a kid to go in and how'd you like that if that was your son or daughter working at the convenience store? Would you like that? Would you think that kid was okay? Well, anyway, the Rodney King fiasco, remember the press again made that a huge thing. And this is why we have this all the time, because it gets ratings. That's all they care about. They don't care about right and wrong. They care about ratings.
Their share.
Well, they had this black man on like 2 days, I forget. It had to be Fox, though. But I'm not sure which network. This black man, I forget what his job was. He was a factory worker, or he worked for a car dealer or something. And I couldn't believe they interviewed this man. This man turned his own son in to the police because remember the rioting afterwards? Yes. And they were jumping up on these 10-wheelers and trying to open the doors, and they were out of control.
They pulled a guy out of a truck and
They
beat him
pulled the guy
senseless.
out. Well, this guy's son was one of those guys that pulled the guy out of a truck.
Really?
That's the kind of people there are in the black community who don't want this either. The problem is they've got people like Obama and Deval Patrick and Jesse Jackson and Charlie Rangel and Al Sharpton as their spokespeople. That's the trouble. They don't have people who really want to heal. They have people who are still PO'd about 100 years ago. And when I talk about patience and tolerance, I make no bones about it. The black race in America has had to have too much patience and tolerance for too long. But now there are so many positive things. And I keep saying it is up to the black community to get new leadership and to get new approaches. It's time to cast off that past. The Irish had to. I'm Irish. My folks came in. I'm a first-generation immigrant. Why don't you look up what the Irish went through? Look up what the Jewish went through. NINA, N-I-N-A, posted in stores in Boston. No Irish need apply. Anybody talk about that? No. Now, there was a factor different, and that was the color of the people's skin and the interpretation of slaves. I don't equate it totally, but I'm saying you must move on, as many have. The problem is there's not going to be improvement until the black community gets leaders who are astute and understanding enough to know this is not working. This is harming. This is divisive. Well, we're near the end, ladies and gentlemen. Another Don McKeag harangue. We could not take calls today because this is pre-recorded. And I'm glad to be here. I hope that I can help. I don't mean to be a rabble-rouser. I'm certainly not racist. But I am America first. I remember when charity began at home. We've got people losing their businesses, losing their houses, and then we're allowing people to come in here illegally and give them housing. That's where liberalism has taken us. It's fact. Is that what you like? Is that what you want for your grandkids and your children? It's not what I want. And that's why the Don McKeag Show will always do this. I will try to inform, but this is serious business. This is war. And once again, remember this. Are you a rational thinker? Do you use the brain God gave you to form a judgment? Or are you irrational, where you stick to only your own greedy needs and your greedy self? I didn't get a chance to talk about Tom Brady. I love the guy, but I'll tell you, I was so disappointed with his F words during that game. That's where we've gone. And I'll tell you, Tom, Joe Montana was your hero. Joe Montana would never knowingly be on that camera and use that word. You're a wonderful guy, but I tell you right now, that was not a crowning moment. It was, I think, part of the problem today. You've got two boys of your own that are watching their daddy play. Is that what you want them to remember you? Effing it along the line? Well, anyway, God bless you. We'll be back again next week, God willing. Don't worry about Black Friday. You can still shop. The prices are just the same. Night now. Thanks for watching.